Assalamu alaikum, welcome to my channel Hidayah. If you like this video and my efforts, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Reference: Sahihal-Bukhari 258 to 286 in book reference, Book 5, Hadith 11 to 38 USC Web, English, reference, Volume 1, Book 5, Hadith 258 to 284 Chapter 6 Starting one's bath by scenting oneself with hilab or some other scent. Narrated Aisha. Whenever the Prophet took the bath of Janabah, sexual relation or wet dream, he asked for the hilab or some other scent. He used to take it in his hand, rub it first over the right side of his head and then over the left, and then rub the middle of his head with both hands. Chapter 7. To rinse the mouth and to clean the nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out while taking the bath of Janabah. Narrated Maimunah. I placed water for the bath of the Prophet, and he poured water with his right hand on his left and washed them. Then he washed his private parts and rubbed his hands on the ground, washed them with water, rinsed his mouth and washed his nose by putting water in it and blowing it out, washed his face and poured water on his head. He withdrew from that place and washed his feet. A piece of cloth, towel, was given to him but he did not use it. Chapter 8. The rubbing of hands with earth in or to clean them thoroughly. Narrated Maimunah. The Prophet took the bath of Janabah, sexual relation or wet dream. He first cleaned his private parts with his hand, and then rubbed it, that hand, on the wall, earth, and washed it. Then he performed ablution like that for the prayer, and after the bath he washed his feet. Chapter 9. Can a junub, a person who has yet to take bath after the sexual act or wet dream, put his hands in a pot containing water before washing them if they are not polluted with a dirty thing except janabah? Narrated Aisha. The Prophet and I used to take a bath from a single pot of water, and our hands used to go in the pot after each other in turn. Narrated Aisha. Whenever Allah's Messenger took a bath of Janabah, he washed his hands first. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet and I used to take a bath from a single pot of water after Janabah. Narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet and one of his wives used to take a bath from a single pot of water. Shubha added to Anas' statement after the Janabah. Chapter 10 Interval during ablution or bath. Narrated Maimunah. I placed water for the bath of Allah's Messenger, and he poured water over his hands and washed them twice or thrice. Then he poured water with his right hand over his left and washed his private parts with his left hand. He rubbed his hand over the earth and rinsed his mouth and washed his nose by putting water in it and blowing it out. After that he washed his face, both forearms and head thrice, and then poured water over his body. He withdrew from that place and washed his feet. Chapter 11. Pouring water with one's right hand over the left one during the bath. Narrated Maimunah bint al-Harith. I placed water for the bath of Allah's Messenger, and put a screen. He poured water over his hands, and washed them once or twice. The sub-narrator added that he did not remember if she had said thrice or not. Then he poured water with his right hand over his left one and washed his private parts. He rubbed his hand over the earth or the wall and washed it. He rinsed his mouth and washed his nose by putting water in it and blowing it out. He washed his face, forearms and head. He poured water over his body and then withdrew from that place and washed his feet. I presented him a piece of cloth, towel, and he pointed with his hand that he does not want it, and did not take it. Chapter: Having sexual intercourse and repeating it, and engaging with one's own wives and taking a single bath after doing so. Narrated Muhammad bin al-Muntadir. On the authority of his father that he had asked Aisha about the hadith of Ibn Umar. She said, "May Allah be merciful to Abu Abdurrahman. I used to put scent on Allah's Messenger, and he used to go round his wives, and in the morning he assumed the ihram, and the fragrance of scent was still coming out from his body." Narrated Qatada. Anas bin Malik said, the Prophet used to visit all his wives in a round during the day and night, and they were 11 in number. I asked Anas, had the Prophet the strength for it? Anas replied, we used to say that the Prophet was given the strength of 30 men. And Said said on the authority of Qatadi that Anas had told him about 9 wives only, not 11. Chapter 13. The washing away of emotional urethral discharge and performing ablution after it. Narrated Ali. I used to get emotional urethral discharge frequently. Being the son-in-law of the Prophet, I requested a man to ask him about it. So the man asked the Prophet about it. The Prophet replied, perform ablution after washing your organ, penis. Chapter 14. Whoever scented himself and then took a bath while the effect of scent remained even after bathing. Narrated Muhammad bin al-Muntadir. On the authority of his father that he had asked Aisha about the saying of Ibn Umar, i.e. he did not like to be amri while the smell of scent was still coming from his body. Aisha said, I scented Allah's messenger, and he went round, had sexual intercourse with all his wives, and in the morning he was mri, after taking a bath. Narrated Aisha. It is as if I am just looking at the glitter of scent in the parting of the Prophet's head hair while he was amri. Chapter 15. To rub the hair thoroughly, while taking a bath, till one feels that one has made his skin wet, underneath the hair, and the one pours water over it. Narrated Hisham bin Urwa. On the authority of his father, Aisha said, whenever Allah's messenger took the bath of Janabah, he cleaned his hands and performed ablution like that for prayer and then took a bath and rubbed his hair, till he felt that the whole skin of the head had become wet, then he would pour water thrice and wash the rest of the body. Aisha further said, I and Allah's messenger used to take a bath from a single water container, from which we took water simultaneously. Chapter 16. Whoever performed the ablution of Janabah and then washed his body but did not wash once again the parts which were washed in ablution. Narrated Maimunah. Water was placed for the ablution of Allah's messenger, after Janabah. He poured water with his right hand over his left twice or thrice and then washed his private parts and rubbed his hand on the earth or on the wall twice or thrice and then rinsed his mouth, washed his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out and then washed his face and forearms and poured water over his head and washed his body. Then he shifted from that place and washed his feet. I brought a piece of cloth, but he did not take it and removed the traces of water from his body with his hand. Chapter 17. If someone while in the mosque remembers that he is Janub, he should leave the mosque to take a bath, and should not perform Tayammum. Narrated Abu Hurairah. Once the call, Iqama, for the prayer was announced and the rows were straightened. Allah's messenger came out, and when he stood up at his musalla, he remembered that he was Janub. Then he ordered us to stay at our places and went to take a bath and then returned with water dropping from his head. He said, Allahu Akbar, and we all offered the prayer with him. Chapter 18. The removing of water from one's body with one's hands after taking the bath of Janabah. Narrated Maimunah. I placed water for the bath of the Prophet, and screened him with a garment. He poured water over his hands and washed them. After that he poured water with his right hand over his left and washed his private parts, rubbed his hands with earth and washed them, rinsed his mouth, washed his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out and then washed his face and forearms. He poured water over his head and body. He then shifted from that place and washed his feet. I gave him a piece of cloth but he did not take it and came out removing the water from his body with both his hands. Chapter 19. Starting from the right side of one's head while taking a bath. Narrated Aisha. Whenever any one of us was Janub, she poured water over her head thrice with both her hands and then rubbed the right side of her head with one hand and rubbed the left side of the head with the other hand. Chapter 20. Whosoever took a bath alone, in seclusion, completely naked. Narrated Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said, the people of Bani Israel used to take bath naked, all together, looking at each other. The Prophet Moses used to take a bath alone. They said, by Allah, nothing prevents Moses from taking a bath with us except that he has a scrotal hernia. So once Moses went out to take a bath and put his clothes over a stone and then that stone ran away with his clothes. Moses followed that stone saying, my clothes, O stone! My clothes, O stone! Till the people of Bani Israel saw him and said, by Allah, Moses has got no defect in his body. Moses took his clothes and began to beat the stone. Abu Hurairah added, by Allah, there are still 6 or 7 marks present on the stone from that excessive beating. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, when the Prophet, Job, Ayub, was taking a bath naked, golden locusts began to fall on him. Job started collecting them in his clothes. His Lord addressed him, O Job, haven't I given you enough so that you are not in need of them? Job replied, yes, by your honor, power. But I cannot dispense with your blessings. Chapter 21. To screen oneself from the people while taking a bath. Narrated Amhani bint Abi Talib. I went to Allah's Messenger, in the year of the conquest of Mecca, and found him taking a bath while Fatima was screening him. The Prophet asked, who is it? I replied, I am Amhani. Narrated Maimunar. I screened the Prophet, while he was taking a bath of Janabah. He washed his hands, poured water from his right hand over his left and washed his private parts. Then he rubbed his hand over a wall or the earth, and performed ablution similar to that for the prayer but did not wash his feet. Then he poured water over his body, shifted from that place, and washed his feet. Chapter 22. If a woman has a wet dream, nocturnal sexual discharge. Narrated Salma. The mother of the believers, Sulaym, the wife of Abu Talha, came to Allah's Messenger, and said, O Allah's Messenger, verily Allah is not shy of telling you the truth. Is it necessary for a woman to take a bath after she has a wet dream, nocturnal sexual discharge? Allah's Messenger replied, yes, if she notices a discharge. Chapter 23. What is said regarding the sweat of a junub, and a Muslim never becomes impure. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet came across me in one of the streets of Medina, and at that time I was junub. So I slipped away from him and went to take a bath. On my return the Prophet said, O Abu Huraira, where have you been? I replied, I was junub, so I disliked to sit in your company. The Prophet said, Subhanallah, a believer never becomes impure. Chapter 24. A junub person can go out and walk in the market or anywhere else. Narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet used to visit all his wives in one night, and he had 9 wives at that time. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger came across me and I was junub. He took my hand and I went along with him till he sat down. I slipped away, went home and took a bath. When I came back, he was still sitting there. He then said to me, O Abu Huraira, where have you been? I told him about it. The Prophet said, Subhanallah, O Abu Huraira, a believer never becomes impure. Chapter 25. A junub can stay at home without taking a bath but with ablution. Narrated Abu Salma. I asked Aisha, did the Prophet used to sleep while he was junub? She replied, yes, but he used to perform ablution before going to bed. Thank you so much for watching. Stay blessed.